Subject is, it's a bit close to my heart, and it's probably close to your heart too, because all of us know somebody at some point that's in our lives that's had some issue with their heart. And there's so many variables when it comes to heart conditions. There's heart attacks, there's strokes, high blood pressure, which is what we're going to focus on today, but also a broken heart. And it's been known, clinically proven, that people can die from a broken heart. That's emotionally. So the heart has a complex thing, and there's also a spiritual element to this, an energetic element, which we'll mention right at the end. So we're going to delve into what you can do for your heart and your blood pressure, particularly using foods and herbs and natural things. And so helping us to get off, potentially to get off some of the pharmaceutical medications which can have quite severe side effects. So I'm going to share a web page, share an article. We're going to walk you through it. And if you want to follow along, there's a QR code at the top there, which will take you to the actual page, and you can dig into the references and the research behind the scenes. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, so resolving high blood pressure naturally. So we're not really, this is focused on blood pressure, but there's a lot more to this. Just general cardiovascular health is what you'll gain by following the guidelines on this page. So, and there is a flip book available if you want to download it as a PDF. So high blood pressure. These are the topics we're going to cover: understanding high blood pressure, the causes of blood pressure, standard medical treatments, foods to lower blood pressure, herbs to lower blood pressure, the power of your mind, and energy for healing the heart and the blood pressure. And then I'm going to share the HeartClenz program right at the end. So let's just have a look at blood pressure generally. So it's a serious condition, and it can go asymptomatic. In other words, you might not have any symptoms whatsoever, but have high blood pressure long term. And this can be a chronic condition which can cause damage to the heart and the kidneys. So it's something that you need to be aware of. And it's good every time you go to the doctor or the physician or the natural therapist is to get your blood pressure checked. Just keep an eye on it. So, and these are the age groups. So you can see here that as we get older, our blood pressure creeps up over time. So there is an element of naturally progressive blood pressure as we go through our life. And obviously this pattern is not necessarily always a disease pattern, but it can be part of the aging process. So that's important to remember as well. I have known people that have had high blood pressure well into their 90s without medication, and they've been quite okay. So an interesting thing there. The stats around blood pressure. So I'm going to skip through this quite quickly, but you can also go back and look at the page for more info later on. If you've got blood pressure over 120, so the ideal is 120 over 80. That's what we'd call a perfect, healthy teenager's blood pressure. And I'm very lucky. I've still got my blood pressure at 120 over 80, and I'm nearly 60. So I think I'm doing quite well. And I'll put that down to the herbs and the food that we're going to talk about. So if your blood pressure is 120 to 140, say, in that range, then you're getting pre-hypertension. So in other words, the blood pressure is starting to creep up, but it's not clinically significant high blood pressure. And the lower thing, 80 to 90. So what we call the systolic and the diastolic. So the systolic is the pressure when your heart's pumping, when it's at its high pressure end of the pump cycle. That's the systolic, and the diastolic is when the heart is relaxed. So then you've got the two ranges, the upper and the lower readings. If the systolic gets up to 140 to 159, then you've got stage 1 high blood pressure, which is when they start to talk about putting you on medication. Well, in fact, they do. They talk about putting you on medication. Pretty much if you got the blood pressure up to 140 or more, then you're straight onto medications. So let's just talk a little bit about there's multiple causes for high blood pressure. There's stress and anxiety, the heart muscle itself contracting too much, overstimulated heart, water retention. So if your body's holding fluids, then obviously that'll push the general fluid pressure up in your body. And then sluggish digestion or weight gain. So if your digestive system is sluggish, your general digestive metabolism is struggling, you'll put on weight, and that will push up your blood pressure. So stress and high blood pressure. Obviously, it's well known that the heart is it's a muscle, so it's an electrically stimulated muscle. And so the contractions of your heart are electrical impulses going into the heart. And so when you're stressed, your whole nervous system gets hyperactive, and you can end up with excessive stimulation of the heart muscle because of that higher excessive nervous stress and tension in the body, which can electrically stimulate the heart. So that's something always worth considering. The blood pressure due to the heart muscle itself being over contracting, so too much activity in the nervous system. Again, this can be stress related too, but when the heart is obviously contracting too much, it'll push the pressure up. So we'll talk about some of the approaches they use to address this, pharmaceutical approaches, and then we'll go into the herbal approaches. So with too much heart muscle activity, you can end up with an overgrowth of the heart muscle, hypertrophy. And that means the muscle in the heart gets thicker and stronger, and it sort of builds itself up because it's being stimulated too much. And that can cause long-term high blood pressure because that heart muscle is basically too big and it's been overactive. Also, I should mention there an increased heart rate. So again, when you've got too much nervous tension or stress, the stimulation of that heart muscle, the sympathetic stimulation of that heart muscle can be too much, and the pulse rate can go up. And of course, more contractions equals more pressure in the body. So a lot of this is pointing to stress as a major concern. Next thing we've got that can cause high blood pressure is restricted blood flow. So when the arteries get constricted, this is because of acid damaging the arteries, and cholesterol deposits as a defense mechanism can push the pressure up in the arteries because it narrows the arteries basically. So less volume available means more pressure. So it's sort of a byproduct of restricted blood flow. If you've got varicose veins, if you're not exercising enough, if you're not doing a lot of exercise, then the veins get stimulated during exercise, and that pushes the blood back to the heart. And so if you're not exercising enough, then the veins can get restricted. So they get less active, less muscle activity in the veins. So that's poor circulation, really, it all amounts to. This one here is worth mentioning too, sugar consumption, especially fructose, which is the most common sugar that's used in fizzy drinks, sugary drinks. And also fructose is added to a lot of sweets and sugary sweets and things like that. And it makes the blood thicker. So that blood viscosity, that thickness of the blood, restricts the flow of blood. So again, it's restricting blood flow, that puts the pressure up. So these are all things, sort of common sense really when you think about it, what can be causing blood pressure. Fluid retention. So if your kidneys aren't functioning, if the kidney bladder system isn't functioning correctly, if you've got too much acid in your body, then your body will hold fluid. It'll hold water to try and alkalize and neutralize the acid. So you've got a combination of possible causes there. And if you're doing things that damage the kidneys or upset the kidneys, too much sugar, again, too much protein, too much acid-forming food, then you can get fluid retention. And of course, fluid retention, again, pushes up the pressure in the whole system because of more fluid, which makes sense again. Digestive health in overweight people. And that's again because you've got a limited capacity within the vessel of your body. When you've got more weight, more fat, then especially visceral fat or internal fat, then you're pushing the pressure up in the entire system internally, and that pushes up the blood pressure. So it makes sense if you're overweight that your blood pressure would go up. So losing weight's a good strategy. So exercise and weight loss, always a good thing. Now let's have a quick look at some of the drugs. So based on those causes, it makes sense that they would look at these kind of drugs. So you've got your blood thinners. So what that in effect does is they use blood thinning agents, and warfarin is one of the most powerful ones. They use it as rat poison because it causes the rats to bleed to death. So I wouldn't suggest warfarin if it's a very, very last resort drug. But most blood thinners can cause other problems in the body. And so it's good to avoid too many blood thinning drugs, but that's one approach, is to thin the blood. Another one is the diuretics, which stimulate the kidneys to eliminate fluid. And often if you've got blood thinners, then your body starts to retain fluid and you end up with diuretics to help get rid of the fluid. And beta blockers and vasodilators are muscle relaxants, so they stop the contraction or they inhibit the receptors on the heart muscles that cause contraction. So basically, they block the heart muscle contractions, which is also really not a good idea, is it, when you think about it, blocking the heart receptors on the muscles. Vasodilators help to relax the muscles and the arteries around the smooth muscles around the arteries in the heart. And antidepressants. So if you're stressed, antidepressants for blood pressure. So the whole thing with pharmaceutical approaches to blood pressure is the side effects. And I've seen not only bad side effects with blood pressure drugs, but also the fact is sometimes they get it wrong. In other words, they haven't got the actual cause of the blood pressure correct. And so they'll just give some beta blockers, for example, when the problem could be that the kidney bladder system isn't functioning correctly and you've got fluid retention. Or there's damage to the arteries due to an acidic diet. And so, giving the wrong pharmaceutical drug can be worse, can make the whole body health worse than, so the actual cause of the condition hasn't been treated and the treatment is worse than the actual problem itself. So you've got to be very careful with your blood pressure drugs that you get the right medication. But I would highly recommend trying these approaches first. So foods and herbs, exercise, stress reduction and all of that. And 9 times out of 10, you can get your blood pressure down very quickly and very significantly with natural approaches and maybe get off the medications that you may have been put on already. So let's look at the diet and the foods. So these foods, it's almost common sense here as well, fresh fruits and vegetables and whole foods, lean meats, good fats. So there's a diet called the DASH diet, which is the dietary approach to stop hypertension. It's essentially a whole food diet. And so a diet that's rich in antioxidants, that's got a lot of phenols in it that help the blood system, the circulatory system, protects the blood vessels, alkalizes the body, gives you a lot of fresh foods, fluids, vitamin C, circulatory stimulants in there. And let's look at some of these foods in a little bit more detail. So celery. Celery helps relax the smooth muscle. It acts as a diuretic, and it's also very well known as an alkalizing food. So celery juice, fresh celery in your smoothies, celery in any which way, shape or form. And here's an interesting one, black cumin seeds. I use this a lot in Indian curry. Whenever I make curry, throw black cumin seeds in there. They're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, vasodilatory, which means they relax the veins and the arteries as well, but also possible angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitory, which means that's a hormone that's made by the kidney adrenal system that causes tension, and that's why it's called angiotensin, angio being the heart, of course. So, interesting compound in black cumin seeds there. Watermelon. Interesting thing, watermelon you think of as a sweet, sugary food, but it's actually very, very healthy. It's got nice antioxidants in it. The lycopene, a carotenoid that protects against cardiovascular disease there. But I highly recommend eating watermelon during the summer as a good heart food. Obviously mixed berries, we've all heard about berries, and we can include grapes in there as well. That these are high in phenols, the bioactive compounds, phenolic acid, flavonoids, anthocyanins, tannins, all of these antioxidants, powerful antioxidants that help protect, and they reduce inflammation in the body. So general inflammation of the cardiovascular system can cause long-term blood pressure issues. And it's interesting that I've always thought of what they call the law of signatures. That was the herbal medicine thing. When you look at a food or a herb, it tells you what it does just by looking at it. And when you think about blood cells, these berries, they look like little blood cells, all these little, parts to the berries. So that sort of shows you what they do. They really look after your blood. Garlic. Garlic has got a lot of studies for blood pressure. So it improves the blood viscosity. It sort of thins the blood. And it's also a long term, it's very, very, very good for the entire cardiovascular system. So I highly recommend using a lot of garlic. I use a lot of garlic. I'll generally use at least half a bulb, or usually a whole bulb in a meal, just for 2 of us. So you can really, get into the garlic. And it's okay if it's cooked for cardio health. It's raw, it's better for your immune system, and cooked, it's very good for your cardiovascular system. Just a bit of a tip on garlic. Chili pepper, again, you can see the signature here, a blood vessel. And when you slice open a chili, the little seeds look like blood cells. That's really interesting. And capsaicin, it just helps stimulate the blood flow. It's just a generally very, very good herb for the heart. There are stories of people having heart attack and getting a spoonful of chili pepper into their mouth and alleviating and bringing them back from near death from a heart attack. So, and chili pepper and chili powder is also known to stop bleeding. So if you've got a stomach ulcer, you can take a teaspoon of chili pepper and it can stop the bleeding and it can arrest the bleeding. So it's a very powerful blood herb and a cardiovascular herb. Ginger. Ginger is a blood thinner, so it acts a bit like aspirin, but it also blocks some of the receptors on the muscles in the calcium channel, so it's quite a relaxant for the heart. So instead of beta blockers, perhaps, have a lot of ginger in your diet, have ginger tea, ginger and honey and lemon tea. A beautiful way to treat yourself for, and if you get fibrillations or an angina or chest pain, ginger and chili together in regular amounts in your food. So a lot of curry. And we'll go into some herbs now. Ginger and cayenne we've just mentioned, they would fall into the category of foods and medicinal herbs. So they're very good for stimulating blood flow and helping the heart. Now this is a herbal medicine that's one of the primary herbal medicines that we use in herbal medicine, because it's got what they call cardioactive glycosides. They work on the heart muscle directly and help to regulate the heart. So if you've got arrhythmia or an irregular heart or heart murmurs or anything like that, they probably put you on some kind of beta blocker again for that, which is really not a good idea for your heart health long term. I highly recommend looking at hawthorn if you can get access to it, or even as a herbal medicine, get it from a herbalist. Have a look. I'll show you what we do below about that. But it's very specific for the heart rhythm, hawthorn. Coleus, this is another fantastic heart remedy. Very, very good for blood pressure. It relaxes the blood vessels. We might go a little bit over 20 minutes here today, but I'll get through this as quick as I can. It's a very good antihypertensive, again, calcium channel blocker. So it helps stop the overstimulation of the heart muscle. So let's look at a couple of muscle relaxants, a couple more muscle relaxants. Kava. I use this for a lot of people that have got stress related to their blood pressure. So have some kava at night, and we can do this as a herbal medicine again, as a liquid. And quite often just a teaspoon of kava at bedtime. That can be really amazing for stress and general anxiety. It's very, very good for the heart. Cinnamon. Now cinnamon is, there's a lot of trials. So if you look at this page, you'll see there's reference numbers here, and you can go to the actual clinical trials for all of these things I've mentioned and have a look at that. So there's nothing better than having that evidence to back it up. So cinnamon, the great thing with cinnamon is you can use a teaspoon a day and it will have an effect on your blood pressure within weeks. And I recommend using it in your smoothies, on your yogurt and fruit. Be generous with it. Herbal teas. The herbal teas are great for diuretics. So instead of getting diuretic drugs, start drinking more herbal teas. Fennel seed is an extremely good herbal tea as a diuretic. It's very nice tasting as well. Nettle leaf. It's a powerful diuretic, so it helps to clear the kidneys and the system of any build-up. Helps to get the fluid out of the body, as does yarrow flowers, and we do this one as the herbal tea. I'll show you in a second. Yarrow flowers are specifically known for helping with varicose veins, and so where there's varicosity or varicose problems or inflammation in the body and the lower limbs, yarrow tea is extremely good, and that'll help bring the blood pressure down. And it's also worth mentioning the power of your mind. In Chinese medicine, the heart energy is known as the emperor. The heart is the emperor of the body, so it governs the body, governs the blood, it houses the spirit. And this is an interesting thing. The heart is talked about a lot in spiritual texts and religions. We talk about our heart as where you feel the spirit in your heart. the love. And so that's essentially the relationship there between a broken heart and having heart failure and dying. And that is well known, that can happen. So it's really important to nurture yourself emotionally, whatever way you can. Meditation is known to bring the blood pressure down within 20 minutes. So meditation is such a powerful tool. So combine that, healing of the heart and the emotional connection with meditation. Powerful. We do offer a HeartClenz program. So if you go to the page, you'll find our HeartClenz program. I'm just going to skip over this quickly. But it contains a detox and cleanse for the weight loss and the gut health. The HeartClenz medicinal liquid, which has got the hawthorn, coleus, also motherwort, ginkgo, bilberry, ginger, and cayenne in a liquid form. That's very powerful. Then we've got the herbal teas, which has the nettle, the yarrow, and the fennel seeds, and a lavender eye pillow, which can help you go to sleep. So I highly recommend this. Take the kava liquid, or have a kava, and some lavender tea when you go to bed, and use that as part of the HeartClenz program. And there's the ebook, which you can download, that's got everything in it. So I'm just going to flip back to me. I hope you found that helpful and insightful. And I know it was just rapid fire, a lot of information, but take your time, go back and have a look at it. It's really amazing what you can do for your heart using food, simple foods, things like herbal teas and a few herbs and spices and a few curries and some relaxation methods. And I hope that if you are on any medications, you'll consider trying these things. Go back to your doctor, get tested again, see if you can lower your medications, and hopefully you can get off them and find a long-term solution using natural things. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.